And it is time for the Word on Wall Street. Top investors watching your money. Joining me right now, Slate Stone Chief Market Strategist Kenny Polcari here. The Fitz-Gerald Group Principal Keith Fitz-Gerald, and Horizon Investments Chief Investment Officer Scott Ladner. Gentlemen, great to see you all. Thank you so much for being here. Kenny, I'll kick things off with you. Great to see you.
And you as well. How great is it to be back in New York City?
I think the last time I saw you in person was the floor of the New York Stock Exchange.
Years ago.
Come on. Could that be?
Could be.
All right. What do you make of this sell-off that we're seeing and this worry?
I'm really not surprised, and I've been talking about it for a while, right? Because it's nothing really new. The slowing economy, the rising interest rates, the aggression, the aggressive nature that the Fed's going to have is something that they've been talking about. We've been talking about. The market has been paying attention to it because they've been trying to keep everybody calm. But what we're seeing now is starting to be the little bit of the unraveling, and this kind of flush that really needs to happen. I'm not nervous about it at all, but you have to be careful on where you put your money.
Yeah, a minute ago, we were talking to Mark Mahaney, and he said, look, the correction's happening. It's time to start looking at big tech. Are you ready to step back in and buy here?
Yes, in fact, I am. But the names that he chose, Microsoft, Apple, and the tech side, absolutely.
It's certainly a big week for earnings, Keith, and we are watching everything that comes out of corporate reports in terms of what's ahead. Meta will report after the bell tonight. Then we got Apple, Twitter, Amazon on deck for tomorrow. Keith, how do you read this earnings season?
Well, I'm with Kenny and with Mark. I'm starting to get very, very excited. Valuations to me, Maria, frankly, starting to begin to feel like 2009, particularly when it comes to big tech. The one key here that I've really focused on has been the split between advertising exposure and businesses with real businesses, because the pandemic darlings are fading into the mirror faster than Texas barbecue when you're full. And here's where we're going with it, is if you've got the cloud, if you've got the tech, if you've got the stuff that matters, a la Apple, Microsoft, those kind of things, you're going to go forward. But if you're exposed to the consumer and people are getting back out and they're living their lives, you're going to have an amazing YouTube miss like Google did. You're going to have problems like Facebook will. I think that those numbers are going to be horrific, and people on the wrong side of the equation are going to get Netflixed.
Yeah, well, it depends on what people are spending their money on, right? They're shifting. They were spending their money on stuff. Now they're spending their money on services. Scott, you say that this is a macro versus micro market right now. Macro headwinds being the Shanghai lockdowns, the higher interest rates in the Fed. What do you mean?
Yeah, I mean, look, I generally agree with what both Keith and Kenny are saying. I mean, this is a the micro story behind this market is actually pretty strong. I mean, earnings are coming in pretty good. We saw Visa last night. Consumers are still spending money, but the things they're spending money on, they're buying fun. They're like, people are buying fun right now. They're done with buying stuff. So if you're moving your money and you're looking for a place to invest in places that are going to benefit from consumers buying fun rather than buying stuff. So that's the micro story. But the macro story is pretty complex. There are a lot of headwinds to this market. The good news is that these headwinds are pretty well known, but they are large. And probably one of the biggest ones isn't necessarily the Fed. The Fed's a problem, and they're being very confusing right now, frankly. But the more confusing and the more opaque one is really China, and their ridiculous and self-imposed zero COVID policy is really putting a ton of downward pressure on global growth in a way that is really hard to model and really hard to figure out. But we don't see that changing anytime soon. So this is going to be a market that's going to have to figure out how to deal with the macro headwinds versus the micro tailwinds.
Yeah, I mean, if it goes from Shanghai to Beijing, it gets that much worse. We'll see about that. Great word on Wall Street, gentlemen. Thank you. Kenny Polcari, Keith Fitz-Gerald, and Scott Ladner. Come back soon, gentlemen. Thank you.
Hi, it's Keith here. Thanks for checking out today's highlight clip. What'd you think? Did I make sense? Is there something you'd like to add? Make sure you leave a comment down below, and of course, click subscribe to keep up right here on YouTube, or sign up for the email newsletter at the link below. You can also find me on Twitter and Instagram for my real-time thoughts on markets, analysis, and a whole lot more.